Good morning to all. So today we are starting a new competency. In fact, this marks exactly the half of the syllabus. This is competency 6. After completing this competency, we have just 6 more competencies to be discussed. Right? Now listen to me very carefully. So Puta, I told you in the beginning that the subject of accounting, right? If you can remember, right? Right? Pute, when I was introducing the subject, I told you that the subject of accounting is a language. Okay? I told you it's a language. Therefore, we have to learn some new terms and rules. Okay, rules. And do you know, in all levels, we don't consider it much, but it is better to know, as the subject of accounting is a language, do you know, it is also a science. Science. The reason is, accounting is the scientific method of record keeping. Okay, record keeping regarding the transactions. Puta, this particular science is introduced in this particular lesson. That science is called as double entry system. Okay. Now, someone might think, so then what is accounting equation? Puta, let me tell you, accounting equation is not the scientific method. There we recognize, as a result of transactions, what increases and what decreases. Therefore, accounting equation is not the science that we are looking for. But that is a very important lesson, because that is the point where you recognize, okay, as a result of transactions, some assets, liabilities, equity increases and some decreases. Now, for the moment, forget about that accounting equation part, because it has no connection with this particular science. Double entry system. Okay. And first, let me tell this to you. As the name implies, right? When a transaction records scientifically, right? We have to follow this system. Make a system. It has to be followed every single transaction. And do you know, this system has two-way effect. Double double acting. So this transaction has two impacts. Impact 1 and impact 2. And it is a recording entry system. Double means dual entry system. It means, simply speaking, Puta, each transaction has dual impact. There are no transactions with a single impact. Definitely, two things are going to be affected. Haridhar, if you are ready, I'm taking you to the right presentation. Haridhar, presentation eකට මම ගෙනියනවා. පොඩ්ඩක් ඕමනාවෙන් cut out එක බලන් ඉන්න ඕනේ. Haridhar, right. Let me take you to the presentation. Right, here we go. Double entry system. Do you know, Puti? I'm conducting classes for advanced level also, right? But do you know, when I'm teaching the subject of accounting for A levels, I'm always asking those akkalas and ayyalas to concentrate on this particular lesson. Because without understanding this particular lesson, let me tell, right, to your face directly, you can't understand, right, accounting. If you can't understand this particular subject, it's a very simple thing. There is nothing to be understood here. But if you forget it, you can't understand the rest of the syllabus. That is what I'm telling for A-level students. But let me give you a small advice. Small advice. Do not ever forget the content of this particular lesson. If your plan is to obtain an A pass for the subject. But in O levels, we don't use it that much, right? But it will be a really helpful, right, for you if you can understand this practice. So I'm going to spend a minimum of 3 weeks on this lesson since it is very important. Puta, let me take you to the first one. Result of transactions. Puta, as a result of transactions, I think you know this, the balances of assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses are changing. If you want, although I ask you to forget about the accounting equation, just look at that. As a result of transactions, every time assets, liabilities, equity, right, are fluctuating, changing. There is something that we know. And let's say, the owner invested capital in cash 100,000. What happens? Assets increase and equity increased. When the owner invested capital in cash 100,000, asset increases and equity increases. 100,000 each. Are we clear, Pata? Are we clear? Let me take you to the second one. මෙන්න මේකේ history එකක් ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඊට කලින් අපි tute එකට පොඩ්ඩක් ගිහින්. Right? තමයි ලියන්න දුන්නේ නැහැ. Right? Before I write these things down, remember every transaction increases and decreases assets, liabilities, and equities. Okay. Now, let me take you to the history. Do you know accounting is a subject which has a long history? This person, do you know the name of this person? Right? He is an Italian, right? Italian monk. Italian jatika poojakavarik. Okay. Puta, this particular subject was initially, this system, I told this scientific system of record keeping was introduced by this particular monk. Name is Luca Pacioli, Bartholomew Pacioli. Right? Adanno me Bartholomew කියන වචනේ ඉන්නේ Christianity, Catholics, right? So it's a Catholic monk. So listen to me. This particular person, we recognize him as the father of double entry system, Luca Pacioli, right? And he wrote a book. Right? බලන්න මේක කියවන විදිය. Right? මේක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් සමහර අය කියවන්නේ සම්මා කියන. හැබැයි මේකේ හරියට ප්‍රොනවුන්ස් වෙන්නේ පුතා සුමා. සුමා කියන එකේ සිංහල වචනයකුත් තියෙනවනේ. හරිද? සුමා the arithmetica, geometry, proportions et proportionality. You don't want to remember the name. ඒක අමතක කරන්න. හරිද? I just want to show you this here. The double entry system was initially introduced by this particular monk in 1494. 1494. And do you know, right? In this book, he has said, as a result of transactions, every time the values are changing. Let's give a name for those changes. I think I'm introducing 2 words now, debit and credit. I think sometimes you have heard of it. In this lesson only, I'm introducing those 2 words to you, debit, credit. Okay, good. This is the right short history regarding the subject. And then In this book, as I told you, he introduced the dual aspect of a transaction. He told every single transaction has two-way effect, dual aspect. Now let's see what do you mean by this dual aspect of a transaction? Now this is what you have to write in here. Right. Puta, first one. Dual aspect of a transaction states that each transaction creates two impacts, namely debit and credit. Right? You have to write a debit. It's a double entry which says the transaction has two-way effect. Debit, first one is debit, and the second one is credit. This is what you mean by dual aspect. What are the two words for that? Every transaction has two effects. First effect is debit, the second effect is credit. Are we clear? Good. Now, right, every transaction has a debit entry. I told you, no, there are no transactions just with one effect. Every single transaction has a debit account, debit entry, and a corresponding credit entry. Something to be remembered. Let's say that you have debited one account. Account debit right, sorry. Let's say that you have debited an account. Let's say you have Adisha, you have to write in the same place, same place here. Right here, you have to write debit credit here. Right, give me a minute. Okay. So listen to me. Every single transaction has a debit and a corresponding credit. Right. Now I'm taking you to the next one. Before that, double entry system double entry system right? Please write this down. Now look at this. Double system, you have to write it here like this way. It is the system. It is the system of recognizing right, the debit and credit entries of a transaction. Right? So with the red pen you write, it is important to remember. It is important to remember that under the double entry system, each transaction has a debit entry and a corresponding credit entry. Corresponding credit entry. Is the system of accounting that the system of recognizing the debit and credit entry of a transaction. That is what you mean a double entry system. It says again, under this system, Puta, every transaction has a debit entry and a corresponding credit entry. Corresponding means for the same. Impact is the same. Impact is the right. Let me take you to the presentation again. Then apo balagina man lassan presentation kadala dina, right? Pudda kubana balaga. Harida putala, right? Now let me show you. Right? මෙතන ලියා ගන්න history of double entry system කියන එක මෙන්න මේක ටික ලියා ගන්න ඕන පළවෙනි දීලා තියෙන ටික in the history of double entry system you are right මෙන්න මේ ටික ලියා ගන්න ඕන පුතේ right මේක ලියා ගන්න ඕන history of double entry system first invented by an Italian monk it means father named Luca Bartolomeo Spazioli and write the name of this book and then write in this book it introduced the dual aspect of a transaction ටගල් ලියා ගන්න පුතා history කියන කොටස hurry up quickly write this down. Right. Let's move to the ledger account. Today, according to the tutorial, right, we have to recognize the ledger account. Ledger account. What is it? Today, ledger account, right? It's an instrument. Okay. Ledger account is an instrument used to complete the double entry system of transactions. Complete the double entry system of transactions. Okay, it is the instrument used to record the double entry system of transactions. It has two sides named as with a red pen debit and credit. Debit and credit. This is how you define a ledger account. Is an instrument used to complete what? Double entry system. Highlight double entry system. Highlight this part. Double entry system highlight. Okay. Double entry system. And also highlight debit and credit. Highlight those two. හොඳට පාඩම් කරගන්න පුතා. දැන් මෙතනින් එහාට මම කියවනේ මේක දැනගන්න නැතුව පැටිය අපිට ඉතුරු ටික කරගන්න තු වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරිද? So please concentrate on this one. But I told you very simple. Every single transaction has two-way effect called debit and credit. Double entry system is the method of recognizing those two impact. Okay, great. Let's continue. Let me take you to the presentation again. Then in the tutorial, we have the format of a ledger account. Then normally, these are the columns that we have to record. We have the date column first. Date. Then second column, description. Third is ledger folio. I'm going to explain all these things. Ledger folio. Title. Next is amount. Do you know? Again, the same 4 columns are repeated. In the other side. Same 4 columns are repeated. What is the order of? Date, description, ledger folio amount. Ledger folio amount. Right? Date, description, ledger folio amount. This is how you write the format of a ledger account. So hereafter, if you were asked to draw a ledger account, you have to provide this format. Date column should be there. Description, ledger folio amount. This is how you draw a ledger account. Right. ledger account, ledger account format right. Happy home konika. Hari. ඔන්න තියෙනවා පළවෙනි column එක. බලන්න මම මේ පළවෙනි column එක චුට්ටක් පොඩියට අදින්න. මොකද ඔකේ date එක විතරයි දාන්නේ. Then the second one, right? I have to keep much space for the second one. And for the third one, lesser space because ledger folio. And for the amount, another, right? Sufficient space. These are the big side. And again, date, sufficient space for the description, and small space for the ledger folio. And another small space for the, right? Not a small space, right? Considerable space for the amount. Make up product it is ledger account. Kak onna ledger account එකම සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අඳින්න. හරිද? Right? Right. And you have to write the titles now. Titles ලියාගන්න මේ. හරිද පුතා? First one අපි ලියනවා මෙතන date. ඔයාලා අඳින්න මෙන්න මේ ටික කොහොම අඳින්න පුරුදු වෙන්න. Date. Okay. Description. හොඳට බලන්න. Then ledger folio LF කියලා දැම්ම නම් ඇති. Then amount. Amount in rupees. Again, the same columns are recorded. Date. Description. Ledger folio. Amount in rupees. Today, most importantly, I'm going to tell you something. It is compulsory for you to write the name of the account. උඩින් නම ලියන්නම ඕන. හරිද? Account. Let's say it is cash. Let's say it is sales. You have to write sales account. Purchases and purchases account. Electricity account. Water bill account. Right. And this is how you draw a ledger account. What are the columns? Can you remember the columns, Puda? Date, description, LF, amount. Again, date, description, LF, and amount. Right. Now, let me take you to the presentation again. Today, this side is called as the debit side. That means for your left-hand side is the debit side. Then the other side is called as the credit side. පැහැදිලිද? අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පුතා මේ ටික දැන් ඔයගොල්ලෝ මෙහෙම ලියා ගන්නවා. හරිද? Right? දැන් ඔය පුතාලා මේක ඇද මේ ටික ලියවන්න ටික ලියලා තියෙන්නේ නේද පුතේ? Right? And normally let's say you have to write the name of the account here. You have to write the name of the account. හරිද? අපි මෙහෙම දීමුකක් මෙතන දාමු sales කියලා. මෙතන ලියනවා sales account. Do you don't want to write it, huh? And here we have the date. මොන මම ආයි පාරක් කියලා දෙන්න. Description. LF amount. ඔක්කොම ටික පැහැදිලි ඔක්කොම ලියන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? මේ පැත්තේ තියෙනවා පුතා. Date, description, ledger folio, amount in rupees. අපි මෙතනින් මේක ලියන්නේ නැහැ පුතා. But listen to me. This is the side that we called as the debit side. Always remember the left hand side of the ledger account is the debit side and the right hand side is the credit side. And another thing, whenever you prepare the ledger account, it is better to show that this is the debit side with DR. You don't write debit, just write DR dot. And on this side, you have to write CR dot credit. Better to mention, you don't want to draw, squares, right? Squares they go in there, they come debit credit kill that gives you the, because this is the first stage where you learn a ledger account, so you should know how to prepare it correctly. Right? So now I told you here the name of the ledger account should be mentioned, name should be mentioned, then the formats. Date, description, ledger folio, and amount. Okay, Puti. Right. Now let's see. Is there a question, Puti? Is there a question? Puti, මම ඒක තමයි කිව්වේ. මේ දෙක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් boxes අදින්නේ නැහැ. හොඳද? Give me a minute. මම ඒක නැත්තම් අයින් කරන්න. හරිද? පුතා, you don't want to draw these boxes, right? That is just to write debit and credit. You don't want to draw these boxes, huh? Don't draw these boxes. You can just write debit and credit. මම එහෙම දාන්නම්කෝ. මේ දෙක ටිපෙක්ස් කරගන්න කිව්වනාට පස්සේ හරිද? මේ ටිපෙක්ස් කරගන්න නිකන් ලියා ගන්න මෙතනින්. This side is the debit side. ඒක ටිපෙක්ස් කරලා අයින් කරගන්න නැත්නම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ වරද්ද ගන්න. හරිද? පුතා, you just write that it is the debit side here. මෙතන ලියා ගන්න. මේ තියෙන debit side එක කියලා ලියන්න පුතා. This is the debit side. This is the credit side. Just write it like that. Erase those boxes. Okay, that is just to introduce you. Erase the boxes and write that down. Debit and credit. That's it. Okay, තේරුණාද පුතා? Who was that? කවුද ප්‍රශ්න මගේ ඇහුවේ? අදීශ තේරුණාද පැටියෝ? Understood? Right. Now let's get back to the presentation. I told you in this question, in this account, there are a number of right columns. අපි බලමුද මෙතන මොනවද තියෙන්නේ කියලා. හරිද? Date. මම මේක ලියනවා. අපි column number විදිහට අපි number 1 විදිහට ගන්නේ date. මෙතන අපි දානවා පුතේ. මෙතන හැමෝම ලියා ගන්න ඕන දැන් මම මේ කියන ටික ලියා ගන්න ඕනේ. Right? First column is date. Description is the date when the transaction occurred in the business. හරිද පුතා? This is what we record in the date column. Date of the transaction. That's it. The second one is description. මේක මේ විදිහට ලියා ගන්න ඕන. In the description column, we write the name of the other account, other corresponding account. ඔහොමම ලියා ගන්න මම පස්සේ කියන්නේ. In the description column, what do we write? The name of the other corresponding account. Okay, good. So far you can easily understand it. Now I'm taking you to the next one. Shall I erase it? Okay, good. Then the next one, next column is ledger folio. LF. This stands for ledger. Sorry. This stands for ledger folio. Right? The number of the other account or the page number. Page number of the other account. 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 Ledger folio. Got it? Great. And the last one, amount. The description is amount of the transaction in rupees. Amount of the transaction in rupees is recorded under the amount column. Now this is what we do. Right. On the description sticker. Once again, check if you can remember what I've taught you. What are the columns of a ledger account? Date, description, LF, and amount. And you know what do we mean by these columns? Study this very carefully. Right to the I'm taking you to the presentation. If I missed something, you can watch the recorded session. Right. I'm taking you to the presentation again. Presentation. Puta, can you remember? I told you when I was explaining the subject that the subject of accounting has different types of ledger accounts. Write this down. Number 1, assets. Number 2, liabilities. Number 3, equity. Number 4, income. Number 5, expenses. Write it down. These are the 5 types of ledger accounts that we can recognize in a business. Okay. Assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. Harida. Right. Now, අපි දැන් බලමු මේ මෙතනට අදාළ වෙන principles. දැන් මම ඊළඟට කියලා දෙනවා පුතා. I think you know how to define them. මම මේක define කරන්නේ නැහැ ආපහු. හොඳද? Right? මම මේක define කරන්නේ because the definitions have been given in the first one. එහෙම දුනොත් මේ පාඩම තවත් දික් වෙනවා. Please write when you study this lesson, please go and read the principles of double entries. The definitions of the accounts. What is assets? How it is classified? Characteristics of assets, characteristics of liabilities, definition of liabilities. I have taught everything at this point. That is why I told you have to study it. On the next week onwards, again we are starting power interruption online class online examination. So from the next week onwards, you have to face that particular examination too. So don't forget that. Okay, don't forget that, please. Right. Now, let's see the next one. Now I'm going to explain the principles of double entry. Principles of double entry. As a result of these transactions, these things are changing. The change is two types. Sometimes change the balance can be increased or balance can be decreased. That's it. That is what you mean by a change. Balance of assets may increase, balance of assets may decrease. Balance of liabilities increase, balance of liabilities decrease. Balance of equity, income, and expenses may increase and decrease. That is what you mean by the change. Change. Right? Puta, now look at this one. I told you that we have 5 types of ledger accounts. This is what we called as principles of double entry system. මෙන්න මේ table එක අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. හරිද? I told you just 2 things can happen. Increase or decrease. Puta, then I told you an account has 2 sides. Okay. Now think about an asset account. Asset account. Account asset account. If the asset increases, that value is recorded. Now you write this, complete these things with a red pen. Red pen. Increase in asset is debited to that account. So remember, increase in asset, debit. For an example, let me show this to you. Right? Our ledger account format. Let's say this is an asset account. Make asset account asset cash, right? Something that everyone knows. Account cash account. Now let's say the owner has invested 100,000 cash. Now, do you see? This is increase in assets. Am I clear with you? Forget about the other impact. Increasing assets. Okay. Then what I'm telling you is increase in asset is debited. No, debited. What we should do is it should be debited to the cash account. Why? We know increase in asset is debit. Increase in asset is debit. Then what has to be the decrease? Then what has to be the decrease? If increase is debit, decrease addition. Anybody in the class? Duniti no the panti? Duniti? Duniti no. Dinel, Shanuk, Vibu. If increase is debit, what should be the decrease in assets? Yes. Decrease in assets should be credit. Asset increase debit, asset decrease credit. Liabilities. Puta, do you know? When the liabilities increases, that increase is recorded in the credit side. Have a very debit feeling. Increase in liabilities credited. Therefore, decrease in liabilities debit. Don't ever think that debit is always increased. No. For some accounts, debit is increased. For some, debit is due to decreases. Equity, increase credit, decrease. Equity increase when that is credited to that respective account. When the equity decreases, that is debited. Income, increase credit, decrease debit. Expenses, increase debit, decrease credit. This is what that Italian monk Luca Pacioli introduced. His introduction has, helped in numerous ways to the present present society. See, assets increase debit, decrease credit. Liability increase credit, decrease debit. Equity increase credit, decrease debit. Income increase credit and decrease debit. This is how it goes. On homai වැඩේ යනවා. පැහැදිලිද? Right. Now this is how it goes. So complete this table without even a single mistake. එක වැරද්දක්වත් වෙන්න බෑ. හොඳද? Right. හරිද පුතා? Now let's move to right. Now let's move to the presentation. I think you all have written this without any mistake. Huh? Right. Now this is the ledger account. අපි මම කලින් කිව්වා මේක debit side එක මේ තමයි credit side එක කියලා. හරිද? බලන්න මේක නේද වෙන්නේ කියලා පුතා. In the debit side, this is what we record. Don't write it. Increase in assets. පොඩ්ඩක් බලන්න. Increase in expenses. Decrease in equity. Decrease in liabilities and decrease in income. In the debit side, these are the changes that you can see. Move to the previous slide once again. In the debit side, what we have? Increase in asset. Increase in expenses. And decreases of liabilities, decreases of equity, and decreases of income. Okay, try to memorize this. And in the credit side, what we have? Increase in equity, increase in liabilities, increase in income, decrease in assets, and decreases in expenses. අපි යමුකෝ ආපහු අපේ ටියුට් එකට පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්නකෝ. ටියුට් එකට පොඩ්ඩක් කියන්න. හරි. ඔන්න. ඔන්න මම ටිකක් ලස්සනට වැඩේ කරන්නයි යන්නේ. පොඩ්ඩක් හැමෝම බලන්න. Assets. Now remember you have to draw right ledger accounts for all the items. හැම item එකකටම account එකක් අදින්න. හරිද පුතා? Right. දැන් පොඩ්ඩක් බලාගෙන ඉන්න මම මේ මොකද්ද කරන්න කියන්නේ. Today, in the debit side of the assets account, what we record, increases or decreases, cannot tell me. What we can record in the debit side of the assets accounts, increases or decreases. We can record increases. Increase, right? Increase of assets, debit. Increase. And in the credit side, what we have? Decrease. Increase in asset is debited, decrease in asset is credited. Something new. Do you know the normal balance of assets is always found in the debit side? මේකත් මතක ඇතුව ලියා ගන්න. Debit side. Normally, the normal balance is found in the debit side. What are the examples we have? මේ ටික ඔක්කොම ලියා ගන්න මම පුළුවන් තරම් දෙනවා. මෙතන ඒ ටික ලියා ගන්න පුතා. Examples of assets. Land. Okay. Building. Then motor vehicles. Right? Office equipment. Okay. Then put a furniture. Furniture. Fixed deposits. Other investments. Debtors. Debtors. Closing stock. Cash in hand. Cash at bank. Cash at bank, normal balance. එහෙනම් තව balance එකක් තියෙනවා නේද? ඒක මොකද්ද මම ඉස්සරහදී කියන්නම්. Normal balance of the bank account is also, right, example of an asset. Assets account. Then අහගන්නකෝ, as a result of a transaction, let's say these accounts have been increased. Then what you should do? Let's say office equipment increased, that should be debited to the office equipment. Why? We know increase in asset account is debited. Let's say as a result of a transaction, debtors have been decreased. Then what we should do? Debtors account should be credited. This is the principle. Why? Asset decrease is credit. Am I clear with you? Right. Any questions? Any questions? අද lesson එක මම ආපහු පාරක් වෝන් කරනවා. හොඳට බලා ගන්න. Right. Okay විභු. නියමයි පුතා. Let's move to the next one. I'm erasing this. මොකද නැත්නම් පළහැටදී මේ ටික පළහැට එනවා. Shall I erase them? Right. Now I'm taking you to the next one. Next account is liabilities. Liabilities. Puta, now tell me. In the debit side, what do we record? Is it increases of liabilities or decreases of liabilities? In the debit side. Mata karla kiyan. Vibhu. Duniti, kenadu. In the debit side of liabilities, what do we record? Decrease or increase? Listen to me. In the debit side, yes, there are no addition, not increase. Increase when in the principal stick. In the debit side of the liabilities, we record decrease. Decrease. And in the credit side, we record increase. This is different with the assets. Because assets increase debit, decrease credit. Liabilities increase credit, decrease debit. Do you know the normal balance? Normal balance of the liabilities account is found in the credit side. Right? Right. The normal balance of the credit liabilities is a credit balance. Credit balance. Okay. Yes, Vibhu, that is correct. Now the examples. Examples of liabilities. Bank loan. A liability. Other loans. If I obtain a loan from your friend to your business, it's another loan. It's a liability. Then we have creditors. Creditors. Then we have the expenses payable. Let me explain it. You have received the electricity bill of the month, but still you haven't paid it. It creates a liability, a payable. Examples of cash at bank. Sometimes cash at bank. Okay. Okay, Vibhu. Okay, Pata, your mother told me you can put the record session. Don't forget to watch this. It's a very important part. Okay, Vibhu. Right. God bless. Parisamin. God bless you. Now, cash at bank. Okay, Pata. Cash at bank. But this cash at bank is overdraft balance. Overdraft. Bank overdrawn balance is a liability. It has a credit balance. It has a credit balance. Okay. Right. Equity. Have you written them? Have you written this, Puta? Right. අපිට චුට්ටක් වෙලාව නම් මේ පාඩම ඉවර කරගන්න. පොඩි වෙලාවක් වැඩිපුර යනවා. හරි. I'm clear, right? Clearing the recordings now. Now what I've told you, liabilities, decrease is found in the debit side, increase in the credit side. Let's say you have obtained a bank loan. Okay, Dinel. Okay, Puta. You can leave, but you have to watch the record session once it is uploaded. Please. මං කියන මේක වැදගත්ම දෙයක්. වැදගත්ම පාඩම. හරි? Right. Okay. You can leave. Now listen to this. Let's say you have obtained a loan. So what happens to the bank loan? Bank loan increases now. Therefore, it should be credited. Because we know increase of liability is credited. පැහැදිලිද? මම next week තව activities ගොඩාක් කරනවා. හරිද? හොඳ උමනාව හැමෝම සහභාගී වෙන්න ඕන. හරිද පුතා? Right. Now the next one, equity. අපි equity වලට යමු. කාටද මතක? In the debit side of equity, what do we record? Increase in equity or decrease in equity? දැන් මතක් කරලා කියන බලන්න. At least look at the table and tell me. What we record in the debit side of the equity? Increases or decreases? මතක නැද්ද? මතක නැහැ? Exactly the meaning. තේරුණාද පැටියෝ? In the equity account, in the debit side, what we record? We record decrease. And in the credit side, we record increase in equity. Normally, now look at this. Equity accounts have a credit balance. මේකත් හොඳ උමනයි මතක තියාගන්න ඕන. Balance. Assets have normal balance is debit, liabilities normal balance credit, equity normal balance credit. Examples. We don't have many examples for equity accounts. We have just a few. මම නිකන් මත කියන්නම්. Capital and drawings. ඔය දෙක මතක තියාගන්නකෝ. Remember, drawings is an equity account. It is not an expense. Drawings is an equity account. Are you all with me? Good. Now the next. Finished? Next is Puta, income. Income. Can you all remember? I told you increase in income. Increase in income is credit, decrease is debit. So in the debit side of the income account, we have the decreases. පාඩම් කරගන්න එච්චරයි වෙන්න ඕන අද දවසට. හරිද? And in the credit side, what we have? We have increase. Increase in incomes. Credited. And do you know, normally income accounts have a credit balance. Examples, examples, we have number of examples. Sales. Okay. Then discounts received. Discounts received. Let's say you have rented out your property to another party and you receive rent. Rent paid. Rent paid is an expense. But rent received. Commissions received. Okay. Interest received on investment. Interest received on investments. Examples of incomes. Got it? Here we have the normal balances. Also, these are the examples of incomes. Now we are moving to the last one, last account. We are moving to the last account. Okay. Expenses. Expenses. Now tell me, can you remember what we have in the debit side of expenses? In the debit side of expenses, what we have? Increase of them. Increase, right? CASE, increase. And here we have decrease. Do you know expenses? Normal balance is found in the debit side. Debit side. And examples. Purchases. Okay. Salaries. Right. Rent paid. Electricity of the business. Water bill of the business. Telephone charges. Advertising. Discounts allowed. Okay. Commissions paid. Commissions paid. Okay. Commissions paid. Interest on bank loan. Interest on bank loan. Okay. These are the examples of expenses. If one of these things are increases, that should be debited to that particular account. If one of these things decreases, that should be credited. Transactions record karnawa ledger accounts. So don't miss out the session. So now you have to do something here. There is an activity. If you have understood today's lesson, right? You have to recognize the category of these accounts. You have to recognize the category. Sales is an income. Purchases, expense. Carriage inwards, expense. Import duties, expense. Like that, you have to write the categories of these things. So today we took the initiative for the scientific method of record keeping by a business. So you have understood it well, as I guess. So I want to see all your completed tutorials. Please send it to me. I'm going to go through them and make any required corrections. And when you forward, before you forward this, please complete activity number 1. You can do it now. You can manage it. Right. Okay, then that's all for today. Until we meet again on next week. But from the next week, we are moving to the usual timetable. That is 5 to 6:30, right? 6:15, 6:30, right? So attend the live class, because on the next week also we are discussing something very important and valuable to you. Okay, then that's all for today. Until we meet again on next week, stay safe. God bless you. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Okay, Bata, God bless you. God bless. Have a person in there. God bless.